you about something that I call subtle spiritual depression. And it's a little different than, say, clinical depression or your dark night of the soul, spiritual depression. Um, it can definitely impact your day-to-day tasks, energy, sleep, attitude. It's kind of like a wet baby blanket. It's not the whole bedspread, but it's just this wet blanket that just kind of sits on you, and you don't feel really bad, but you don't ever feel good. And it's something that happens. It's happening to millions of people right now, brought on by repressed energies, repressed emotions, the pandemic, the cultural trauma that is being reawakened in the space to be addressed directly. There are many factors that are causing this subtle depression that people are having. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that to hopefully give you some things to think about and some things that you can do differently in your day to shake things up. So I want to start, as usual, by reading a little excerpt from my book, Conquer Your Karmic Relationships, Heal Spiritual Trauma to Open Your Heart and Restore Your Soul. One of the things, the first chapter is called Plenty. And I talk about my experience processing the cultural trauma of the Holocaust through one of my ancestors. And dealing with cultural trauma, no matter what your relationship to it is intense. It's transformative. It requires a whole other level of compassion and understanding, not only for yourself and your the experience that you're having several generations away from it, because the generations outside of the generation that actually experienced the trauma is left here on the planet, or is born here on the planet, to help those spirits process today what they were unable to process in that trauma, in that awful event. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to read from you an excerpt from Conquer Your Karmic Relationships. And it says, understanding karma means being able to recognize the multiple ripples an event sends out through time and space, how each of those layers affect each generation based on their specific vantage point to the event. For example, there are several lenses through which we are born into a relationship to a previous tragedy. Here are a few of the current soul groups and the unique vantage point from which they process an event like the Holocaust. The current living survivors, the people left to address the geographical space where the event took place and the energy it holds, the friends and family who have experienced a direct loss from the tragedy, people who have experienced an indirect loss from the event, like shame, grief, guilt, anger, depression, fear, anxiety, and dismay that is created in the collective culture as they relate to the event. Those who have reincarnated with the spiritual memory of the event, and those in subsequent generations who learn of the event through history books or another person's viewpoint. Okay, so as you can see, there are a lot of layers that we all experience, and we are born with our spiritual relationship to many tragedies that are being brought up into the energetic space through the news, through current violence, through different current experiences or events that are taking place that are triggering all of us on subtle levels that we don't necessarily feel like, oh my God, I need to go cry about this, or things that we're being triggered that we have an extraordinary amount of emotion towards, even though it's not something that's happening directly to us. But we are able to empathize with the people to whom it does happen. So when you have that energy in the space, and then you have something like the pandemic, where we are all required to stop. I don't know. All right, stop. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait. I know. Totally bad timing joke, but that popped into my head because that really is what is happening. We just had to stop and wait. And as it turns out, we're actually waiting for the postman on many levels. So when we are required to move outside of our traditional habits and daily processes, whether it's how we think, how we act, how we move, how we speak, how we relate to the ones in our family, how we see people, how we don't see them, right? Everything about our daily life has changed in the last 12 months. And it's put all of us in a position to reflect or recognize these different levels of, if it's not something that we are personally going through, it is something that others go through. And it is causing this general spiritual malaise that everyone experiences. Is anybody out there today? I've got a couple of people watching, so hello to you. Nice to see you. If you are somebody out here who has experienced this, throw it out there. I want to talk to you. I want to hear about your experience. One of the ways that malaise really can affect you is a bad attitude. And when I say a bad attitude, I mean you don't feel great. You don't feel inspired. You don't feel ready to get into your day every day. You may be more irritable, more frustrated, more resentful, right? There are different energies. You may be easily triggered when someone is rude or disrespectful, right? All of these things are aspects of this spiritual depression that, like I said, everybody is connected to on some level. Some people have anxiety. They have sleep issues. Their midnight sleep is interrupted. It's really important also to pay attention to the hours. If you wake up during the middle of the night, say, for example, I believe it's between 1 and 3 a.m. is the time that our liver, it's the time that we should actually sleep the deepest. And it's the time that our liver processes. And what our liver processes is the energy of bitterness, frustration, anger. And so if you have had those feelings during the day and not been able to express them, then that's the time you're going to wake up in the middle of the night. It also really affects how you digest food. You're going to crave different things, and then not, like if you're drinking at all, if you have stepped up on drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes, that's going to deeply affect that period of time between 1 and 3 a.m. when you can't sleep, because your body's going to have to process all that you have given it or not given it, or all that you haven't expressed. So just some things for you to think about and take stock of, take inventory about your daily regimen and how you are processing through things that bother you throughout the day. One of the main things that you can do to begin to change how you relate to this, we're going to call it this depression, this subtle depression, because it's clinical depression. Although it's many things, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't really tell you about it. But because I've experienced it throughout my life, I've experienced multiple levels of depression and spiritual depression. And clinical depression is when you really cannot function. You isolate yourself, you pull yourself back from your daily activities, your work, your friends, your family, and you begin to isolate and then become very apathetic. This is not what we're talking about. This is something that you may not want to seek Western treatment for this, because it's just this general malaise. You don't feel awful, but you don't feel great. So one of the rituals that I always recommend to really shift how you are relating to your day-to-day experience. I know everyone's heard that if what's going on in the news is really troubling you, to stop watching. Okay, that goes without saying. Stop watching the news. Give yourself a selected period of time to tune in. You know, I watch the first 5 minutes of the Today Show. That's pretty much what I do, and that's it. I want to stay abreast about what's happening, but I don't need to indulge in the multiple levels of it. I already feel that emotionally, so I don't need to put a lot of focus on it. Drink a lot of water, right? The more we are 70% water, and so the more water you drink, the more it's going to cause a flushing that's going to shift how you relate to your body. It's going to shift how you digest. It's going to shift how you focus, how you can think. If you are dehydrated at all, your eyesight actually diminishes. So there are a lot of just really basic things that you can do and give yourself a little more focus and self-care. So those go without saying. The next thing I want you to think about is it's a ritual of change. It's so ridiculous and it's so simple but it has such a huge transformative result. It's called moving 1 degree in any direction. I talk about it in my first book, this one here, the Master Your Inner World. I talk a lot about this kind of stuff in this book. I cover a lot of it because it is one of the things that as you begin to spiritually shift, which many people are, their spirits are awakening, their ability to be clairvoyant, clairsentient, and clairaudient is beginning to really come online, and they're beginning to be telepathic and ultra sensitive. Anyway, so that's the book that you want if that's a part of your experience. So back to this ritual. Literally pick one place in your home, in your room, whatever is your domain, and I want you to clean it and clear it. And I want you to pick one item, whether it's a picture on a wall or a vase or something that's simple and easily moved, a book. And I want you to every single day take that item, put it on that space for the day, and then at night take it down, put it somewhere else. And then in the morning, put it back. And then at night, take it down and put it somewhere else. And then during the day, put it back. I know, it is the most silly, ridiculous, simple ritual that will change how you become aware of your daily life, your daily regimen. Any little activity that you do that you change, let's say you switch from coffee to tea, or you switch back from tea to coffee, right? Or you don't have anything in the morning, you just have water, right? Any little shift in your behavior in the morning. And the idea of, I use books a lot. For some reason, books and vases with flowers are my two big items to move, because for whatever reason, for a whole month, I actually took a vase filled with flowers. It was on a pedestal, and I put it down on the floor. And then I put it back up, and then I put it back down on the floor. And I had to remember to do that every single day, twice a day. And the response to that, it literally changed my body. It changed how I think. I became more aware of things. I mean, it was silly and it made me laugh every single time I did it. That just right out the gate. But there are all of these other subtle changes that begin to happen that you become aware of, you know, where you are beginning to feel the emotional drudgery. Because often when you are deeply depressed or you've experienced an enormous loss and you are grieving that loss, which we are all grieving to some degree in some way right now, But when it's been a major loss, it makes sense. You can point, say, hey, this is why I don't feel good. And I know that eventually, as I process this thing, then eventually things are going to shift for me. But when it's multiple huge things that are happening to everyone, it's harder to be clear on exactly your relationship to each one of those things. So creating some movement in your daily regimen, that's first. The second thing is to begin to be aware, is to begin to become aware of what it is that you're feeling when you're feeling it. So it's the process of being mindful. Don't worry about feeling something, pay attention to it and let it move through. If you have a thought that is painful or sad or empathetic of someone else, allow it to move through your consciousness, through your mind, through your heart, and just let it keep moving. So like the crawler at the bottom of you gain a whole other level of self-awareness that lets you know which things are triggering you. And then you can begin to be more pointed in your meditation or your focus as to, why is this thing bothering me? Right? Because the more you understand why something is bothering you, you can then change your relationship to it. So that's what I've got for you all today. If there's anybody out there with questions, throw them out. I want to hear them. You can type them in the comments after this is done, and I will always get back to you. As usual, you know that you can reach me at TraceeDunblazier.com, and you can buy any of my books, Conquer Your Karmic Relationship. You can buy it anywhere, any Barnes & Noble, Amazon, any small bookstore. I always like to celebrate the independent bookstores and order from them. If you're interested in purchasing the entire box set of the Demon Slayer's Handbook series, this is brand new. It's actually a limited item that you can get from me only. So you can reach me at beaslayer.com and have one of these sent to you. And or on TraceeDunblazier.com sells them as well. So that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. And take a deep breath and take care of yourself today. Have a great weekend.